Welcome, everyone. Thank you for attending the session. I'm excited on behalf of Tenovos Corporation to present the 3 must-have capabilities of a modern data-first DAM. And so I only have 20 minutes, so I'm going to jump right in and start really with talking about initially what, from a Tenovos perspective, we see in the market and our vision and our approach. And then we'll lead into the 3 key features I'd love to talk about that are very data-centric, that we really believe that for companies out there that are really looking to optimize their content and produce effective content and put that to their customers, that we have the right solution and some really great features for you. To start, maybe just to talk about a bit of context, I mean, we feel that we're at an exceptional time in the market. Behaviors are changing of consumers. The demand for content is the highest it's ever been. When we look at applications and we look at the experiences online, content is really driving the patterns and the behaviors that we're seeing. And so content is really first and foremost in this modern world. And personalization is a really hot topic that we see a lot of companies really struggling with, how to target, how to effectively bring the right content at the right time to the customers. So we see this really not as a problem, but really as a huge opportunity, but the right kind of DAM, a DAM that is very data-centric, that's aware of context and understands the various dimensions of what makes content effective. It's really what's necessary for companies to be successful today in the market. So telling stories really is the way Tenovos thinks about this opportunity. As we think about an asset, the image or the type of content that is being presented or brought to the end users, we see a lot of opportunity to really consider all the other information and data and context around those assets and really bring them into the ecosystem of DAM and help all of that content get governed, all of the information governed, and really give a unique tool set back to the marketing teams in understanding their content and the types of content that would be most effective to drive the outcomes they're looking for. We call this return on asset, or the asset value proposition. And when we say story, just to demystify that a little bit, because we've heard the term asset a lot in our circles in digital asset management, just to demystify that a little bit, what we look at are some various things that go with an asset. As we think about an asset moving into its production life cycle or its consumption life cycle, from manage, move to measure, and then ultimately to optimize, there are key data sources that become very exciting and interesting if we can consider them as part of the DAM life cycle. Audience data, contextual data about where these assets are being presented, the purpose, or what are the goals? What is driving the value of this particular piece of content? And so as we put all that together, our goal is really to look at it holistically. And for a modern DAM that has a lot of capability in terms of managing data, we now can access that data, interpret it, and bring it back into the normal process of how metadata is managed, create that 360-degree view around the asset, and truly manage it as a story, as something that has more value in terms of its impact and its goals and orientations, and what drives really its ultimate value proposition. So moving away from the classic metadata model to a more organic or more open data model to support all the goals and objectives that companies have with content. An example here, if we take what is often something that digital asset management capabilities try to do, which is remove and manage the fragmented scenarios and the orchestration and workflows from creating a piece of content and moving it through its full life cycle to the consumption scenarios. And it tends to be very complex. There's a lot of steps, a lot of other third-party applications that are involved in this whole process. So we really have thought through that complexity at Tenovos. A lot of the team at Tenovos comes from a long-standing experience in the industry and have watched digital asset management grow and change through many years. And we see this as a key opportunity for a more modern interpretation of what the DAM value could be, which is, how do we introduce various data types to the process? So when we think about the design iterative process, we can think about budget data or rights data, version data types. We can think as we move into a review and approval stage, we think about status or revisions or how long it's taken to move through those steps to be ready for its production cycles. When we think about campaigns, there are very interesting data sources, in terms of personalization and our desire to create content that is a targeted type of content, the targeting information, affinity groups, audience information. This is all very, very powerful content for us to be able to interpret and provide back to the users as they're moving through this life cycle. From a content distribution perspective, there are very important data types like SEO and SEM optimization. Ultimately, we want all these channels on the web to discover the content and promote it and create that organic traffic. So there's important information that needs to go with the asset as it moves in through its production cycle. Channel-based data, usage data to be considered. And of course, as we move in, imagining that post-publishing of an asset or story, we want to understand how to optimize it and make it more effective in terms of what it's doing in that production channel. So when we step back, there's a lot of potential information here that if we can get our hands on it and integrate it back into the metadata model and wrap it into what we're doing, we can make the whole process more effective. And we call that, in our terms, we call that the difference between a supply chain and a value chain. So sharing that data, bringing it all together and providing it back. So this is a little bit of a visualization quickly of sort of a macro view of how Tenovos sees the world. We see the classic content and metadata on one side, which is really what historically the legacy DAM world really has been, working towards. And from a modern DAM perspective and a data-centric DAM, we now look at the other side, which is where what we consider performance data. And how do we tie that performance data, that understanding of the context? And how do we bring the notion of KPI and what are the drivers to this information, bring it back to this whole system, add in a little bit of machine learning and AI, some of our secret sauce, and then pull it all back together and help really support the creative life cycle and optimization of content to reach the market opportunity. So what are some key capabilities that would tie into this methodology and model around data management? There are three key ones that I wanted to walk you through today. One based on tracking assets through their life cycle, one around curation, control, and the facilitation of the optimization of stories, and another one that relates to connecting rights data, which we really think is a native data type that DAMs should really be deeply interested in as part of their schema. And I'll take you through some of the value of Tenovos having integrated that deeply into our strategy. So to start, the first core capability I'd like to walk you through is something we call Storylink. Storylink is really a bridge between the DAM libraries, which have been curated and managed and controlled and governed, and the upstream applications, the creative suite, the CDNs that need to grab that content and put it into a highly scalable way of distributing it, the CMSs that need to create the wrapper experience around this wonderful content. So this application is a desktop application, it's a plugin, it's basically a tool that sits in the context of the creative user and the upstream application and brings the value of the Tenovos DAM right to bear on those applications. So an example of a use case here is where we have an author, a creative, building a web page, but they want to build an optimized web page, an optimized landing page, a product page. They really need to get quickly to the top assets, the best assets, the most important assets that could drive the KPIs of what they're trying to do in the publishing of that page. They also want to consider SEO optimized content or stories. So looking at underlying the DNA, the actual DNA behind the image, the alt tag, the image tag, the resolution, providing the right proxy or rendition so that when we drag and drop the asset from Storylink right into the landing page, it's already pre-optimized, ready for market, has its SEO embedded, and the formats and rendition are already published to the CDN. all of this happens as part of the Tenovos DAM. So Storylink is the bridge, but it actually acts proactively on behalf of these assets because it's now working in the context of use, the context of publishing. Further to that, what I really love about the overall approach in thinking through the broader data value prop is we're able to track those assets through the life cycle. So with Storylink, because we insert some of the Tenovos DNA through that life cycle, we're able to now be aware of all the context of use of an asset. If an asset or story has been placed in an InDesign file for a flyer or an online page or a channel or an app, we're able to track that, report on it, provide analytics about that, and really generate that visibility as to how successful certain stories in the repository have been in terms of being used in the wild. So managing all the relationships around that and tying the data together and ensuring we can track that and generate that visibility is critical to the success of this particular feature. And so you can see how this is a very data-driven feature. It's not simply about just dropping an asset into a web page. It's about following through, tracking the asset, creating the awareness, optimizing that so that it's an optimal story and can be extremely successful in the context of use. Another key feature that's very data-driven that we've recently introduced at Tenovos is really, what we like to call what you should be able to do with a portal. Now, I'm sure there are a lot of you out there that have experienced portal technologies and work with how to take DAM content and kind of push it through a portal to sort of enable the broader ecosystem around using the content. At Tenovos, we've taken a little bit of a different approach. Of course, we enable through microservices and a very advanced platform and backend the ability to integrate with Tenovos. We've also promoted now a way of sharing, collaborating, extending, governing key assets that are optimized that you'd like to provide to the channels and engage in that further production lifecycle that goes beyond access to the core DAM, but open up the ability to get access to these stories. So we've created something called Storyboards. It's really a way of sharing these assets dynamically based on channel, based on role, based on privilege. So all the governance is still there. We don't lose any of the governance, privilege, and management, but we get all the benefit of the ability to extend these assets outside of the DAM in a controlled manner to really help all of the other third parties that really need access to the curated content. And so this is an example of a quick view of one of our customers creating these storyboards. And storyboards, they can be dynamic, meaning constantly updated and refreshed as content versions, new versions happen within the DAM. The storyboards can be dynamic updated. They can be static, so they can be highly governed and highly controlled. So there are all these variations. But again, as we look at this from publishing scenarios to the marketing channels, the ability to run projects through using storyboards, to track and control those assets, and ultimately all the collaboration use cases you can imagine around this. Our goal at Tenovos is to ensure the reporting and the traceability is part of the application. So a lot of data behind how these boards are used. So again, the teams that are managing the DAM can go back and say which storyboards are most used, which assets in the context of those storyboards are most used, and really it helps inform the value of content in the repository. Another example here of an application of a storyboard, which is more around strategic partnerships, is where a company would be working with another company to go to market with a set of products. And they want to make sure they're providing the optimal assets in the right format, the right renditions for mobile, for responsive design, all of the metadata necessary, and really provide that advantage by now having a channel and a channel experience that provides that best content and the most highly optimized content to that channel. And then the ability to track the consumption and track the usage of that in that context of that partnership. So we've really gone pretty far in terms of the administrative controls and all of the configurations and the ability to customize the look and feel. So they're pretty cool. We're pretty excited about this feature, and it's a very data-centric feature as well. Now, last in terms of the list of the three key capabilities is a rights management capability. We call this story rights. And at Tenovos, we've decided to really think about that data type as a native data type. So sometimes, we federate data from various systems and we consider those third-party data sources. But in this case, we believe at Tenovos that to be a modern dam and a data-centric dam, you need to be able to manage rights natively. And that means in our schema and the way we think of privilege and the governance around rights, the cost, the implications around having renewals, and the possibilities around having to manage different regionality and where content can be used and can't. We really want to help the creatives do the right things with content and make sure the governance is in place so it makes time to create a campaign or time to publish optimized by having this native data in our system. There's a lot of data around rights that needs to be managed. It's a very data heavy source, from the actors that participate in the content to the costs to the actual privilege that sits within a document that the legal teams need to manage. We've figured all that out and built a pretty compelling capability that makes it all easy and also takes it to another level in terms of analytics and projects. So the idea that you would have a talent or an actor who's participating in a governed asset or a rights managed asset, be able to track the participation of that actor, the costs associated with using the actor in sort of unique material that you're trying to create, the campaigns that actor participated in, and really visualize this and see that 360-degree view of how rights have been applied in this case, ultimately to the goal where we want to understand the return of value you're getting by spending money. So as a company, you're concerned with how much am I spending on rights managed assets? Am I getting the full value out of those rights managed assets? And what can I do to optimize the time to market when all of these different participants are involved and conditions involved? How do I help those creative teams from a productivity perspective? At Tenovos, we've covered all of those in our core use cases around this feature. So coming full circle, now when we look at it, and in the context of rights, I'll use it as an example. Because Tenovos is proactive in looking to get the data, get the audience data, the performance data, track it through its life cycle using Storylink as a way of inserting that DNA into the experience. What we're doing really is over time, in an example like this, a simple download request form, which I'm sure a lot of you have all seen, the ability to govern an asset through download and workflow. What we've inspired is the ability to say, no, give me the audience data, give me the intended budget or how this asset could be used, and really draw that information into the DAM and provide it back as useful metadata to the asset managers and the creative teams to really optimize their work. So we believe, a modern DAM needs to bring it all together and bring all that data into productivity scenarios and value around asset creation and optimal asset creation. And these are three features as an example. We have many other features that take advantage of the data centricity, but these are three key features that we feel are highly differentiated from that perspective in terms of their data management characteristics. Now, one last piece, because of course, we didn't stop there. Enabling core features that are data-centric is one thing, but now pulling it all together so that we can provide by working with the features that way and working with the data through machine learning and AI, we can pull it all back together at Tenovos and provide actionable insights, not just simply reporting, but we can visualize and show you how an asset has moved through its life cycle, where it's been optimal, the process has been optimal, looking at trends or patterns that you might want to be aware of, and proactively making suggestions about the content. So in other words, we're not simply sitting passively there providing a report on usage. We're actively looking for patterns, we're running some of that machine learning, and we're promoting actionable insights in one of our core products called Story Insights. And so that's also something that comes with the Tenovos capability, and we're offering to our customers, that pulls all those core digital features, the DAM features together that are data-centric, and provides you that holistic view and the insights that can optimize your content performance over time.